Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to our next webinar that we are so honored to be able to bring to you today. Excited about this one that has been made possible by our 30 Forward Research Advisory Committee. For those of you who do not know who that is, that's Dr. Craig Bunnell and Dr. Kirk Luther. They have made this possible. They've done all the work at bringing everyone together. We're so excited today that we have three of Canada's wonderful policing leaders with us, and they just all happen to be women as well. So we're excited for that conversation. Moderating today will be our very own Inspector Andrea Torrey from the Hamilton Police Service. Those of you that know Andrea, she's very dedicated and passionate about this work. She is the chair of the Ontario Women in Law Enforcement. And as mentioned, she's also an inspector with the Hamilton Police Service. So I'm going to hand it over to you now, Andrea, to introduce our wonderful guests.
Thank you, Val. So I will start out with Chief Fiona Wilson. She was appointed to Chief Constable of the Victoria Police Department in 2025, representing the first time a woman has held the top policing position in Victoria. She brings over 26 years of diverse, strategic, and operational experience to her new role. She previously served as the Deputy Chief Constable of the Vancouver Police Department and had leadership roles in Vancouver overseeing various departments, including Investigative Division, the Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit, Court and Detention Services, Federal Serious and Organized Crime, Major Crimes, and Professional Standards. Our second panelist is Chief Laura Lee Davies, who is a trailblazer in the field of law enforcement, having made history as the first female chief of the Regina Police Service with nearly 30 years of policing experience. She's had various leadership roles in Regina before taking over the new role as chief. She has worked in both uniform and investigative divisions with Regina Police Service and has provided leadership in community-based and human resource sections of the service. She has been a member of both the public safety and crisis negotiating teams. She has managed large-scale protests and labor disputes and has provided oversight as critical incident commander on emergency service calls. Deputy Chief, our last panelist, Deputy Chief Mary Henderson, who has served with the Kennebegaskis Police Force, Deputy, for 26 years, including time in front line patrol and in criminal investigators division. She has held the implementation of sexual assault investigations, best practices endorsed by the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and has worked with the Sexual Violence New Brunswick and community partners to advance trauma-informed approaches. Being the first female officer to reach the rank of Deputy Chief in her service, Deputy Chief Henderson is a dedicated advocate for women in policing. She actively supports initiatives that strengthen mentorship, representation, equal and opportunities across their policing profession. So thank you for all three of you for attending. This is going to be a great webinar. We have a couple of questions for you. Do you want to just start right into it? Okay. So the first question, it's please describe your current role and share some of the professional experiences throughout your policing career that have shaped your understanding of leadership, wellness, and organizational culture in policing. It's a big one. Does somebody just want to start?
Sure, I can maybe kick us off here.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. What a fantastic opportunity. My name is Fiona Wilson. As Andrea mentioned, I'm the chief of the Victoria Police Department. Prior to being here in Victoria, I started here last September. I was a deputy chief at the Vancouver Police Department, where I did 27 years of service. So the majority of my adult working life was spent at the VPD. I sort of grew up in that organization. And I had the opportunity to work across all three divisions at the VPD and really was very, very fortunate to have been offered a number of really exciting opportunities. And I certainly took full advantage of every single one of them as they came along throughout my career. Why my professional experience and what really shaped my understanding of leadership was early on in my career having the opportunity to watch some really courageous police leaders at the VPD. I learned quite early on. I'd been on the job for maybe 10 years or so when I saw police leaders who are willing to really think outside the box and consider different ways of doing business. And a big part of that was really having a willingness to have some humility and a willingness to stand up and talk about the circumstances under which we didn't always get things right. An early example of that for me was I did a bunch of research with respect to police calls for service involving people who are mentally ill. And it was the first time in Canada that this type of research had been undertaken. And we found that in some areas of our city, up to 50% of the calls we were going to involved somebody who is grossly mentally ill. And the extraordinary thing about that project was I was working with a chief and deputies who were willing to stand up and say this was not appropriate, that police had become de facto mental health workers, that we were criminalizing people by virtue of their mental illness, and also to not just use statistics, but also to incorporate real life stories about the devastating impact of this reality. And it was pretty groundbreaking at the time. It may not sound so much so all these years later, but in 2006, 2007, police agencies generally didn't stand up and talk about the fact that we were criminalizing people by virtue of things like a mental illness or substance use disorder, although those conversations, thankfully, are much more common today. But I think it was a real defining moment in my career when I saw these police leaders take a stand and have a willingness to lead with some humility, and also to hold other service providers and community accountable. And I would say that was sort of one of my very first experiences that helped me understand the kind of leader that I wanted to be. And it really gave me an insight into organizational culture and how that culture is formed.
A great example. Chief Davies, do you want to take a crack at it?
Certainly. Good morning,
Yeah.
everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. It's fantastic to take part in such an amazing webinar. So I'm Laura Lee Davies. I'm the Chief of Police of the Regina Police Service. We are a police service of about 420 sworn officers, about 200 civilian professionals. I have been the chief here since December, so it's still really shiny and new. But I've been with RPS for close to 30 years. So worked in really a variety of areas. And, when I reflect on that question, I think early on, I had fantastic supervisors who supported initiative and supported thinking outside the box. I had an early street supervisor who encouraged me to get involved with our union, our association. And so I spent 18 years of my career sort of on the other side of management, representing our members from an association perspective. And I think that has really grounded my whole career in taking care of our members first, taking care of wellness, advocating for those who might be sort of on the periphery of the organization, maybe not in the in-group, that type of situation. And so I think for me, having that experience really guides me in terms of my work today. And that if you take care of your members, then the rest kind of takes care of itself. And so I was very fortunate to have a chief who was very supportive of me and provided me with opportunities to grow, some stretch assignments that I maybe necessarily wouldn't have put my hand up for because I didn't think I was ready. And so certainly encouraging that behavior in our supervisors and in our leadership team to be able to push people beyond their limits to help them grow is certainly something that I think is fantastic and such a great opportunity for anyone in policing.
Thanks, Chief. When you took on the association work, is that something that you wanted to do because you were interested, or were somebody asked you to put your hand up for? Can I just ask a little bit about, because it's very unique, having that much experience in association work and becoming the chief?
Yeah, I think the people that were on the association when the time that I first became involved were people I really respected in the organization.
Yeah,
And so I thought, well, if they're doing that work, then, certainly that is meaningful work. But yeah, not something that I ever thought like, oh, I'm definitely going to get involved in our union. But I think it is so important. And
yeah,
to have that kind of diverse path to the chief's office, I think is quite unique. But
yes,
certainly, I think that it has reaped benefits already, just in terms of really looking at things through that lens first.
that's amazing. And Deputy, do you want to finish this off? Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. And uh, I too have had good experiences here at the Canada Cases Regional Police Force. I started here 26 years ago, and it did look a whole lot different. There was 3 women when I started, so it was a little bit different. It was a kind of a trying to fit in. In the early days of my career, it was trying to prove myself. I think I felt a little bit I'm a victim of that. I found that I was trying to fit in, trying to be the same as everybody else. There was kind of unspoken expectations about how you should act, communicate, lead. But they were shaped by kind of an old-fashioned senior leadership team, which was fine, and they were all great, and everybody was wonderful and welcoming. But I kind of learned to navigate through that by doing the things you're supposed to do or how policing has always been looked at. But over time, I do think things have really changed, which is excellent. And I've had the opportunity to work with lots of male leaders that were very supportive, but I think I gained a lot of trust through experience. I don't know, I said this before we started, I don't know if anyone can see, I'm literally 5 feet tall. I really have I'm a really small person, which I find is a little bit of a barrier itself, but I learned to adapt. And I did gain the trust of a lot of my coach officers, supervisors, just by being able to communicate a bit more differently. And I feel like I actually had a lasting impact on how they perceived how women do their job in policing. And they actually came to like it. But as we know, we all deal with things differently, but I was same as you, Chief. I was vice president of our union for 8 years, which is really interesting to come onto the other side after that. But being able to have your perspective as a leader on both the union side as well as the senior leadership team has it's been an amazing growth to see throughout the years here. We're fortunate in Canada Cases. We have 2 members of our senior leadership team are women. And I feel like we have critical mass in the senior leadership department, and we all think really well together. We work well together, and we make decisions not just based on one perspective or view, but we do it from 4 people's view, and it seems to work really well. The other thing I would note in our department, we almost have critical mass for women in policing. But they're so dispersed that I don't think the critical mass is as effective. So meaning if there's 7 people on a shift, we only have 1 female. And I don't feel like it comes across as a critical mass in those decision-making situations. So I would like to, in my role, try to plump that up and try and make it so that there's more women on each shift.
That's great. That's great. Chief Wilson, I when we talked last, I couldn't believe all the female leaders that you have heading your organization. It's just amazing. The mayor, the association rep, the chief, corporate comms, HR director. Like it's just it's actually like fresh air. Do you know what I mean? To see that and how well you guys work together. And I know you've only been there for a year, but how much you guys have done. I watched you very closely out there, and we're just so impressed by all of that. So let's go on to question 2. Why is it important for police organizations to think specifically about wellness experiences of women officers? Are there any programs in your place, agencies to promote wellness, which you are particularly proud of? So, Chief Davies, you want to start out with this question?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. I would say not just specific to female officers, but in the last 2 years, we've been very intentional in investing in our integrated health and wellness area of our police service. So before it was just sort of a branch under HR. We've broke that out. It's our own area. We have a staff psychologist. We have a staff physiotherapist. We've just put a sworn officer in there to help with reintegration. And so we're rolling out reintegration. One of the things we heard from our female members who are coming back from maternity leaves is, you get your quick recertification in your firearms and your self-defense and you're back out there, but really doesn't allow for that time to sort of reintegrate back into the organization. It's a huge transition. You're full-time being a mom, and then all of a sudden you're full-time back to work. And so our reintegration program is something that we are just in the baby steps of, but I think is going to be a huge difference when it comes to having our members come back to work. And that's not just specific to maternity leaves, but also for people coming back from injuries, that type of thing, I think will be huge. And then the other piece, not solely specific to wellness, but I had my first inspector competition for officers, and typically it's open to our staff sergeants. We didn't have any female members in our staff sergeant rank, and so I opened it up to sergeants and staff sergeants. And so I had a number of female sergeants who competed, and I'm super proud to say that we have a female sergeant on our inspector list that hopefully she will get promoted here shortly. And then one of my first orders was filling the deputy spot that I vacated. And so we have a female officer in that now too. So I think just being really intentional, understanding where we have gaps in our organization, and then trying to fill that in a way that's transparent. Though it's not I handpicked somebody for this position. There was a competition. I was clear in what the competencies were, and I had a number of female members who competed say, when you showed me the competencies for that, I wasn't going to compete, but I put my hand up because those are the things that I think that I bring to the table. So really proud of the fact that we are able to pull out the skills that we think are valuable in our senior leadership team, and that really resonated with our female members.
Great. Deputy Henderson, do you want us to lead with that one?
Sure, thank you. We too, in the last few years, have taken a intentional look at our wellness as well. We just put a wellness structure outside of our building. It's just a place where people can gather, have breaks, and do that kind of thing. And it's unbelievable what putting a gazebo outside will do for people's wellness when you allow them to have a 20-minute break and sit outside in the sun. Was something that was difficult to do, meaning budgetary wise, but we managed to do that, and we're very happy we did that. We also have a wellness committee, and we have several members sit on that, and we focus on what needs to be focused on. So we do know that women in particular struggle here with shift work. So we're looking at going through our labor management to try and come up with ways that we can make it more palatable for women who have small babies or small children that are finding it difficult to try and work those hours. So we're looking at a pilot project for a different shift schedule where you get every second weekend off. And so we're hoping to delve into that in January of 2027. But I think we do a great job organizationally of including all people, not just women. And I'm very happy we have a fantastic HR manager that is unbelievable with these things and sees things that the senior leadership team might not see from our view. And she makes us focus intentionally on that. And it's really been a positive experience here. And I'm happy that we have that.
Thanks, Deputy. And Chief Wilson.
So I think that one of the reasons organizations need to think specifically about the wellness experiences of women officers is because those experiences are different than men. And historically, there has been, simply by virtue of numbers, focus, association, the focus of associations, the composition of associations, there has been a focus on men's health and well-being in policing. And fortunately, that has shifted over the last couple of years. We're having more conversations about menopause, for example. It just blows my mind that something that literally affects almost 100% of women eventually in this profession is in sometimes very dramatic ways, is something that we've just started talking about in the last couple of years more openly. Certainly, women have been having those conversations behind closed doors and with each other for many years. But, you know, it's not lost on me that in some organizations, Viagra was covered under the extended medical program before birth control was, you know, and I think that's just a product of having associations that are advocating on behalf of their members who typically were men, by people in the associations who typically were also men. So I think that the changes we're seeing are really, really fantastic, but they're also, we have to be intentional about it. And so I make absolutely no apologies for focusing. I mean, there are some things that absolutely are about member wellness. There are some things that are about men's health, and we can think of lots of initiatives around that. Then there are other things that I believe we really need to build out more that are specific with respect to women officers. You know, maternity leave, women are still doing 70% of domestic duties at home. Menopause, perimenopause, these are all matters that really disproportionately impact women and that we haven't historically been talking about as much as we should. But also putting things in place to support women through those experiences. One of the things we did here at Vic PD shortly after I landed was we moved all of our promotional processes from competency-based to character-based. This wasn't necessarily simply to attract more women into the ranks, but what it did do is send a very, very clear message that as a leader here, I am more concerned about promoting leadership based on an individual's characteristics than their core competencies. Please do not get confused that people who are getting promoted don't have to be competent, because of course, in my mind, that's sort of a given. That's a base. But what I'm really concerned about are those characteristics that I want to see in leaders in this organization: empathy, compassion, common sense. I want to promote leaders who people are going to follow. Thank you so much for your kind words, Andrea. I have found myself in this incredible environment where I've got 2 female mayors, because we police 2 different jurisdictions. I have a female board chair. I have 3 female directors. I have a female union president. It is extraordinary. And, you know, I had never really contemplated what it would be like to be surrounded by these incredible powerhouse women and to be working on a team that was primarily female. I had spent a lot of time in my career thinking about the fact that I was often the only woman in a room, the only woman on a team, the only woman on a watch on the road. And as I got up into higher ranks, that reality became more and more prevalent. So I had thought a lot about that. I thought a lot about how I was managing that, how I live with that, how I work with that, how I show up when I'm the only female voice at the table. But I hadn't really thought too much about, hey, what would it look like if the tables were turned? And I can tell you, it's phenomenal. It's wonderful in all the ways that one might imagine. You know, I just can't say enough about the need in this profession to open doors for women, because we're really good at this. We're really good at this job. And we bring a whole different level of perspective. And you really see that change when you have the numbers. And so, you know, in terms of the need to focus wellness experiences internally, specifically towards women, There simply hasn't been enough of that over the years for all of those reasons that I talked about. And I think it's absolutely critical because it speaks to attracting and retaining women in this profession.
All great responses. Here in Ontario, Ottawa police have been leading a lot of really great work, especially their WISN supported by Deputy Ferguson. They had implemented some contractual things where like women breastfeeding at courts and being required to attend court. Can they attend virtually with their babies? And they did some really great work last year, and a lot of police services here and associations have adopted a lot of their contractual things that they're able to put into their contracts. And they hosted a menopause lunch and learn, and I think they were a little bit surprised that they had over 120 people attend this lunch and learn, and so that just shows you the need, like to have 120 people show up that when they didn't even know who was going to be there was just overwhelming. And so just really great work being done by a lot of police services across the country, and Ottawa is definitely leading the way here in Ontario, I would say. If anyone has any questions, please place them in the chat. I'm not sure. I don't see the chat, Val. Do you see any questions or can I continue?
You can continue, but yes, if anyone anywhere through wants to throw anything in there, we're monitoring it for you guys.
Yeah. So the third question, over the course of your career, how have conversations around wellness in policing evolved, especially around women police officers? What unique wellness challenges do women police officers continue to face within police environments? I think some of us did already answer that in the last questions, but anything else to top off that question? Deputy Henderson, do you want to start with that one? Especially the last part, like what unique wellness challenges do women police officers continue to face in policing environments?
Well, I'll hit on the same thing Chief Wilson said.
Yes.
Well, it is really difficult. I went to just when you hit the peak of your career when you're supposed to be doing the best job you can do, you have brain fog, you have lack of sleep, all those things. They're huge, barrier. You got to come to work. You're the only woman in the room. You're the only one that didn't sleep for, 2 days in a row. And I too, I'm the only woman in the room at MB Chiefs usually. I had presented recently at MB Chiefs about 30 forward, and I do have a supportive chief here, and he was wonderful about it. So I just think we just need to dig our heels in and keep going, because I think any initiative we can do to empower women and, like Chief Davies said, to try and get people, coached, trained, all the things we need to do to get them in some leadership roles. Because as Chief Wilson says, we are really good at this job. I don't care what anyone says, women are really good at policing. So that's what I think.
Thank you. Chief Davies, you want to top off that question a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. Two quick examples. So in our collective agreement, we had a provision, it was called pressing necessity time off. So if there was an emergency, short notice, you needed to go, it said right in the collective agreement, this will not be used for childcare. And we were like, what? But it said, in the example, your water heater stops working or your furnace stops working. And so another female member of our executive team said, like, really, in short notice, beyond childcare, like what else would you use this for? So we had that changed, and it was actually quite a debate, which, struck me as funny, but it had been in that agreement for a long time. And so we've taken that out. We said, well, yes, this should be used for childcare. If the daycare or the school phones and says your kid is throwing up, what are you going to do? So, I think for moms, that was a change that, gives them a little bit of confidence to know if something comes up, I'm covered. I'm not, going to be in trouble for having to leave work early. And then the other piece, Mary, I think you alluded to it, is for young moms who have a couple of kids, they're not in school age yet. We had a member who said, I really want to stay and be a police officer, but I don't think I can balance it. And is there opportunity for part-time work? And so that isn't something that we had previously contemplated. but we said we are committed to making that work. We'll have something in place here in the next few months. Flexible work schedules is what we're doing right now. But I think for many of our female members, especially those who have families, that transition might be enough to, get those school age children to school, and then they could come back and resume full-time work. This one officer is fantastic, incredible investigative experience. And so we're going to do everything we can to make this work. But I think it really will create opportunities and more flexibility for many of our members who are trying to balance home life and work life and trying to do both well, which can really be a struggle. And I just hope that this will afford more flexibility for those officers.
Yeah, and I also think, Chief, sometimes women just don't want to ask, and they just don't want to seem like they're a burden. Chief Wilson, do you have anything else to add to that?
I would just say, Andrea, I think your example is probably really familiar to all of us. Like I raised 3 kids. I did the, nursing, still nursing, came back to work, screaming to get home because I was overflowing, nursing, and then handing baby off to my mom so I could take the stand. All of those kind of things. And although I do think we have made some really positive steps forward, I just want to tell a quick story because this was only 2 years ago. I was sitting at an executive table. I was the only female. I am probably like in the province, I think I've probably been through more promotional processes than maybe any other woman. And or close to it. I was one of the higher ranking women in the province. At the time, I was a deputy chief. And there was an entire conversation, and it was the entire board, and it was my senior executive team, and it was all men. And there was an entire conversation about the barriers to women applying to get on the job, and then the barriers for women getting promoted on the job. And at no time did anyone, and everyone at that table had many, many explanations and reasons for all of these things. In fact, one person said that it was the intense amount of guilt that women feel trying to balance their families and also have a career in policing. These are all men who have children themselves. At no time in this entire 25-minute conversation did anyone ask my opinion. And I'm the only person sitting at that table who actually has lived experience with all of those things, with promotions, with trying to, have this career, with kids, with taking care of the house and all those things. And so although we've made really good advancements, I think we still have a lot of work to do. And we can't forget that there are always going to be people in our profession who are invested in the status quo because it works really, really well for them. And so I think we do need to be a little bit pushy sometimes. When we're advancing women in this profession, we can't assume that everyone, despite the fact that it sounds like we have all, I know I have had some phenomenal male sponsors and mentors over the years, people who have absolutely supported me and promoted me. There's no question about that. But there still is, there still are people in our profession who are really invested in maintaining the status quo. And so I think that's the only sort of cautionary comment I would make with respect to that question.
Great conversation. Val, do you want to just go over the question in the chat you said?
Absolutely. So we have a question that came through. I would love to hear more about what they wish to accomplish next, even the things that might appear out of reach. Does anyone want to answer?
Excellent question.
I think that's a great question. I've been the deputy chief here for 2 years. What I would love to see, and I don't think it's going to be me because I think I'll probably retire first, but I would love to see a woman chief here. I think that they have lots of confidence in me, both of the communities that we police. But I also don't know that they're ready for a woman chief yet. And I really would like to see that, only because of the perspective we bring. I've been in this community I've lived here, I was born, I've lived here my whole life. I want to accomplish that at some point. hopefully we'll get a woman chief, and it doesn't necessarily need to be me, and I'm not that person, but yeah, that's what I'd like to accomplish. And you do that by supporting women in all ranks, giving them coaching, training, mentoring, and encouraging them to do their best to become higher ranked, because we have a lot of valuable things to present and to give to this organization. So that's what I would like to promote and accomplish.
Great. Chief Davies?
Great question. For me, I think a big piece is around our culture and our organization and really creating a supportive culture, psychologically safe culture. That is, really important, I think, in terms of making lots of the other changes. And so my hope is that will hugely impact retention. And when people feel that they're in a safe space, hoping that we're creating more mentorship and opportunities for our folks. We're about 26% female, so I'm hoping we can get ourselves over the 30% mark. And I think, as Fiona would know too, there are lots of little wins in community, going out to events and having young girls and young women come up and talk to you about seeing a female in the chief role. And so I'm very hopeful that helps with recruiting for sure. And then there's, some collective bargaining things, potentially down the road in terms of, fully paid maternity leave. I think that would be attractive. We've thrown out about daycare. Is there a potential for us to help support that for shift working mothers? And so, I really think the sky is the limit in terms of where we can go. But I think the important thing is listening to our members and determining where we need to have our priorities align with their interests. So like I said, I'm still just a couple months in the role, but certainly there are lots of great opportunities ahead.
And Chief Wilson?
So I would ultimately like to see more women in higher leadership roles across this country in policing. So I'm lucky here in British Columbia because I've got DDoS Cody, who is the chief in Statliam, the tribal police. I have Suzanne, who is the chief at Transit Police. So we actually have I'm the first female municipal chief, but we do have other female police leaders. And one of the things that I just can't sort of understate is the power of being in charge. Like when I was a deputy chief in Vancouver, my ability to influence promoting, supporting, sponsoring women in policing was somewhat limited. And I had this very interesting experience. And I think, I talked to colleagues across the country who are in the deputy chief role. And Mary, you kind of alluded to it. I think that there is widespread support for women in policing to get into that deputy chief role, but then something happens. And I actually think it's that suddenly you become competition for that top job, and the support just isn't as rigorous, perhaps, as it is at lower ranks. And so, and now that I'm in a chief position, I can see the power of being able to really exert influence when it comes to supporting women in policing when you're actually in the top role. And so it sort of reaffirmed and underscored my belief that we don't just need women in this profession, we need women in leadership roles in this profession. And that's at every rank from sergeant on up. But I'll do everything in my power to try and support and promote women across the country to get into those roles, because I really do believe, and my experience in Victoria, as I say, kind of underscores that with respect to working with these incredible women and seeing the things we've been able to accomplish together. It really underscores the need for simply more women. And that's one of the reasons I love the 30 Forward initiative, because it's about getting that sort of mass representation to a point where you can really influence change.
Great question. I saw a quote today and it kind of has stuck with me, and it says something about don't forget to look around where you're standing, uh, was once the goal, and sometimes we forget because we're so busy, trying to move forward and make change that we sometimes forget to take a breath and look at where we're at and be very proud of those moments because, it did take, challenges and failures and to get there and how much that took out of you, especially after 30 years in this profession. So any more questions, Val, in the chat, or can I go on to the probably one of our last questions? And
Yeah, go on to the last questions, Andrea.
okay. So I'm going to do the question number 5, the second part. What do you believe policing organizations across Canada need to prioritize over the next 5 years to better support women officers? Chief Davies.
Question. I think, Fiona has highlighted the selection process for the chief's role is something that is really outside the hands of a police service. So it's a police board role. And sometimes we can't plan for that. Like there's no sort of accounting for that decision making. And I find it ironic because I've heard lots of conversations from boards around how we need to have more female leadership. And then sometimes when they have the opportunities to make that happen, they don't. And so I do see there's a disconnect there in some situations. I don't really know how we rectify that because that is the role of a board is to hire a chief. And so I think there's some work there. I'm not exactly sure what that looks like. But I think just these conversations are fantastic. I count Fiona and Mary to be good friends and colleagues. And so I'm always happy for those successes. And I think just being those champions for others, really, if you know of an opportunity, if you can help sponsor someone. So talking about them when they're not in the room, selling their attributes and the great qualities that they have, I think is something that can be very powerful. And I know that I've had that happen for me. And so I think just those conversations are so important.
Deputy Henderson.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Boards. So education for our boards to understand what the role of the chief is, because as we know, it's very different than deputy chief, but experience counts for a lot in that role. And of course, communication skills, which women excel at as far as I'm concerned. The other thing I think we can do is put it out there. I find that people think that you can't be a police officer because you're 5 feet tall or because you cry when something sad happens. I cry all the time. I cried this morning. I don't know if that's menopause or if it's just who I am. But just because you have emotions doesn't mean you can be a police officer. So I think we should promote that with the young people. I know that all my friends have children that are 18, 19, 20, around that age, and they get mad when I try and encourage them to be a police officer because they think it's dangerous, hard, and it's a male-dominated field, which it is, all of those things. But it's such a rewarding career, and I encourage anyone that I can. So just supporting that notion and supporting the people inside of our workplace.
Chief Wilson, I have another question, and maybe the other two can piggyback. If you were to ask or give advice to your 21-year-old self, now that you've gone through, your 26, 28 years of policing, what would that be?
Well, Andrea, this is a really tricky question for me because I was hired when I was 22. And I really did not do a good job at managing the job and my family. Those first number of years, those first 10 years, to be honest. And I completely, my first marriage tanked. I was single by the time my kids were 2 and 4. Thankfully, I have a wonderful relationship with their dad. He's like a brother to me, and we've raised the children together. But I was really so focused on work that I let a lot of things in my personal life kind of fall off the side of the desk, and I have regrets about that. So I probably would have said to my younger self, I'm not convinced she would have listened, but I probably would have said, pay a bit more attention to what's going on at home. And you're never going to get this time back with your kids. Like I say, I'm sure people said that to me. I actually think my mom had that talk with me. I know my ex-husband had that talk with me, and I didn't listen to any of them. And I'm not certain that, unfortunately, my career would have been successful in the absence of those years. So I'm kind of conflicted about it, but I think that would be the advice to my younger self. I'm like you though. Sorry, like what Mary said. I would almost do this job for free. I've loved every minute of it. It's been such an incredible ride. I feel so privileged to have had the opportunities that I've had over my almost 3 decades in policing, and I do it all again in a heartbeat. So yeah, I know that's not a really great answer, but it's the
It's a
truth.
great,
So
it's a great answer and it's very relevant. Chief Davies, question for you. Your proudest moment in your career, if you had to say big or small?
That's a good question. Um, I served as the one of the previous chief's executive officer for a number of years. He was a very good mentor to me and really allowed space for creating change. I went to him at one point and said, I think we need a truth and reconciliation committee here at our service. It's not work that we are intentionally looking at. He was supportive of that. And so pitching that to a room that was not receptive, I would say.
Yeah.
And, I think that was one of the first opportunities where really I felt strongly passionate about something and had enough confidence in myself to use my voice to advocate for it. So that certainly ranks up there. And then I think the other that I would mention is I had previously applied for the chief's job and was not successful. I didn't feel valued under the person who got the job and had really thought about leaving the profession, but really after some soul searching said that I wasn't done here at Regina Police Service and really focused my energies on connecting with our frontline members. And that to me was fantastic and so reinvigorating. And I think it meant a lot to our frontline who maybe necessarily weren't feeling heard and valued. And that I think is what has me sitting in this chair today. So.
Great, great. And Deputy Henderson, I would love to know for your whoever's going to be sitting in your seat next, what best advice would you give them that you have learned in the last 2 years?
It's actually really interesting. I am typically the only woman in any room,
Right.
wherever. And sometimes you have a tendency to keep your mouth shut, go with the flow, try to fit in. I would tell that person to use their opinion, use their smarts, and use their communication skills to get your point across. Because we do have great ideas, we do have good things to say, but it can be intimidating. And when you're in a room full of men, and you think you have to speak louder, talk louder, do all the things men do. You don't have to do that. You just have to get beyond not saying how you feel and not saying what you think. Because I really do think, especially whoever sits here, whether it be a man or a woman, hopefully it's a woman, that their opinions need to be noted at this level.
Thank you. Before we wrap this up, any more questions in the chat? I just want to give Craig an opportunity to talk about the virtual scholar program. Any other questions, Val?
We do have a few, but I just want to note to those that we will reach out and answer those questions separately. I just want to give Craig a chance to speak as well.
Yeah, Craig, do you want to just touch on, before we close out, on the virtual program that we have being offered right now?
Yes, for sure. Thanks very much. And great webinar as well. Really appreciate everyone's comments. And I always learn so much during these webinars. So really appreciate the guests making time to share their wisdom with us. So yes, there is the Virtual Scholars Program, and I have three senior leaders here that if you would like to share this with your members, that would be much appreciated and get the word out there. So the Virtual Scholars Program is actually a program that we've borrowed from the Canadian Society for Evidence-Based Policing. It's an opportunity to connect any police practitioner in the country, whether they're sworn or civilian, with an academic researcher. We have a large number of really great researchers that have signed on to the program that really span the country, men, women, broad spectrum of research interests. So any police practitioner, again, sworn or civilian, who has an interesting research project that they'd like to do, but maybe they don't feel they have the skills or resources, or they don't have access to institutional research ethics boards, they can apply through the website for the Virtual Scholars Program with their idea. And then Dr. Luther and I, Dr. Kirk Luther, will, with the Research Advisory Council, assess those applications, and will connect and match the practitioner with one of the academic researchers that has been brought on board. And then we hand things over to them, and they throughout the next 6 months, year, will work together hand in hand to carry out whatever research project was of interest, and then hopefully we'll share results at future webinars. So I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's exciting. I talk to so many police officers and civilians who have really amazing ideas, but just don't feel like they have maybe the skills, expertise, or resources to pull it off. This is a great opportunity to get that done. So any of the listeners, of course, the chiefs and deputy chief, spread the word. And this is the first cycle. The deadline to apply is in a few days, May 15th. So there's a few days left. We already have some great applications, but if we can get some more, that would be wonderful. Thanks very much.
To touch on that too. That is in regards to women in policing, the idea being understanding some of those gaps and coming up with recommendations around how we can make this work from everybody's perspective across Canada. So that is the research around that. So please take a chance to go on the website and take a look at that. Andrea, I'll hand it back over to you for closing remarks. And again, thank you.
Chief Wilson, Chief Davies, and Deputy Henderson, thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your leadership. Just know that we are watching you from across the country. We're very excited to see what's next for all three of you, what's next for your services, your communities. You're an inspiration, and everyone thinks very highly of you. So thank you for the last hour. We will get a pink sweatshirt out to you for thanking you for the webinar. We'll figure that out. And just thank you. And so on behalf of 30 Forward, please continue doing what you're doing, and please reach out if you need anything. We're also there to, or if we could support any of the other organizations around you, please reach out to one of us. We will definitely do our best. So thank you.